She had everything: followers, fitness empire, love. But behind her Instagram posts, Raven K. Jackson was hiding a secret, and by the time the world found out, it was too late. What went wrong for the 24-year-old fitness mogul, who seemed to have it all? A haunting message, a battle no one saw, and a life lost in silence. What happened to Raven Jackson? She had it all: an empire, a following, a message of strength and empowerment that resonated with over 230,000 people. Raven K. Jackson was a name synonymous with fitness, motivation, and success. On social media, she was untouchable, the epitome of what it meant to live a vibrant, powerful life. But there was a secret she kept hidden from the very people who admired her. A secret that would ultimately cost her everything. In the months leading up to her death, Raven posted her usual content. She encouraged her followers to keep going, to push through their struggles, to stay strong in the face of adversity. Her smile lit up the screen, her words filled with optimism. She inspired countless individuals, reminding them that there was always hope, always a way to overcome. But as the world saw only the light, Raven herself was fading into darkness. On September 2022, she posted her last message, a simple yet powerful reminder to her followers to take care of their mental health, to prioritize themselves amidst the chaos of life. But hours after that post, Raven was gone, vanished from the world she had carefully crafted online. The woman who had told others how to keep going was now silenced. Her boyfriend, rapper 600 Breezy, was left devastated. In a series of gut-wrenching posts, he shared Raven's final words, words that no one could have seen coming. "Nothing feels real to me. Not my love, not my business, not myself." The message was a cry for help, an expression of a pain too deep to ignore. But by the time those words reached the world, it was already too late. How could someone who gave so much to others, who uplifted so many, feel so lost? How could the woman who built a business, a following, and a life of success feel like nothing mattered? What happened in the days and hours before her final post? What did those who loved her miss? Raven's life was a carefully constructed image, a picture-perfect world she had created online. But that world was not a true reflection of what was happening behind closed doors. She was a fitness mogul, a mental health advocate, and a symbol of empowerment for so many. Yet, in her final moments, she was fighting a battle alone, a battle that no one saw coming. The truth is, mental health struggles don't always look the way we expect them to. Raven's death was a shocking reminder that the brightest smiles sometimes hide the deepest pain. She had everything the world thought was needed to be happy: a loving boyfriend, a thriving business, thousands of followers who admired her every move. But despite the millions who saw her as a beacon of hope, Raven felt invisible in her own life. Her story is not just a tragedy, it's a wake-up call. It forces us to confront the harsh reality that sometimes, even the people we think have everything are silently suffering. The question remains, how could we have known? What were the signs that we missed? And most importantly, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? This case is far more than just the story of one woman. It's the story of countless others who silently struggle while the world around them sees only the surface. It's the story of a system that, despite its efforts, can't always protect the people who seem the strongest. It's a reminder that, even in a world that celebrates perfection, there is always more beneath the surface. Raven K. Jackson's story is heartbreaking, but it's also a message. A call to action for all of us to look beyond the filtered images, to pay attention to the quiet battles that are being fought, and to ask ourselves, who is hurting in our lives, and what can we do to help? Her final message was a plea for help. But was anyone listening? September 2022. The sun had barely begun to fade over Raven K. Jackson's Mississippi home when her final message lit up the screens of thousands. It was a typical post by all appearances, her voice calm, her presence radiant, her words rooted in strength and survival. She had done this countless times before. A quick video, a quote of encouragement, a gentle reminder to keep going. For her 230,000 followers, it was business as usual. Another spark of motivation from a woman they had grown to admire, even rely on. Raven wasn't just a fitness influencer. She was a powerhouse. The founder and CEO of Go Crazy Fitness, a mental health advocate, a rising entrepreneur. At just 24 years old, she had carved out a space where wellness, self-discipline, and healing could coexist. Her brand was built not just on the transformation of the body, but on the elevation of the mind. She spoke openly about struggle, about trauma, about pain, but always through the lens of triumph. She was, for many, a symbol of what it looked like to survive and succeed. Beside her stood her boyfriend, rapper 600 Breezy. Known for his ties to Chicago's drill scene and a following of his own, their relationship appeared to be full of promise. They shared tender moments online, exchanges of support and affection that further painted the picture of a young couple rising together, thriving in both love and ambition. But then came the silence. Just hours after that final post, everything changed. Raven was gone. No warning, no explanation, no goodbye. The news sent shockwaves through her community, both those who knew her intimately and those who only knew her through glowing screens. How could someone who had just posted a message of resilience be suddenly absent? It didn't make sense. To the world, she had it all: beauty, health, success, love. And yet, none of it was enough to anchor her in a world she no longer felt connected to. The last person to speak about Raven was the man who loved her. Days after her passing, 600 Breezy released a heartbreaking account of her final hours, revealing that she had sent him a series of emotional texts. Texts that spoke of isolation, emptiness, and a sense that her reality no longer held meaning. "Nothing feels real to me. Not my love, not my business, not myself," she wrote. It was a confession soaked in agony. In that moment, the woman who had devoted her life to helping others, who had spent years reminding others that they mattered, was confronting the terrifying belief that she no longer did. This was the moment that forced the world to stop scrolling. This wasn't just another tragic story. This wasn't a headline or a passing post. This was Raven. And suddenly, the online world she had once dominated fell quiet, because no one had seen it coming. Or had they? This was the beginning of a story far more complicated than anyone could have anticipated. A story about perception, pressure, identity, and the invisible weight that even the strongest among us can no longer carry. Behind every perfectly curated Instagram post, Raven was slowly breaking. There were no cries for help, no desperate videos, no sudden shift in tone, just the same soft voice, the same words of strength, and the same infectious smile that made people believe everything was okay. She was a beacon of positivity, a guide for thousands. But privately, something was changing. In the days leading up to her death, those closest to her began to sense a heaviness in her words. Her responses came slower. Her usual spark, though present, flickered at the edges. And then came the final message. One line that would haunt everyone who read it. "Nothing feels real to me. Not my love, not my business, not myself." It was raw, honest, terrifying in its clarity. How could a woman so grounded in motivation, so deeply embedded in the culture of healing, suddenly feel so detached from her own reality? This was the same Raven who spent her mornings training clients, preaching the value of self-discipline and mental clarity. The same Raven who filled her social feeds with quotes about survival, healing, strength, who urged her audience to keep pushing, even when it hurt. But what happens when the healer no longer feels healed? When the motivator wakes up without motivation? Her life online painted a picture of success: luxury travel, romantic getaways, neatly pressed branding, and early morning workouts. It was the image of a young woman in full control of her destiny. And yet, it was this very image that may have cost her the space to truly be seen. The expectations were relentless. To be a leader, to be consistent, to never crack. Raven had built a world where she could inspire others, but in doing so, She may have locked herself in a role she couldn't step away from. What if her brand became a mask? What if the curated smiles were hiding something deeper than anyone realized? And what if she didn't know how to ask for help, because she was the one so many turned to for theirs? Her boyfriend, 600 Breezy, later described their final conversation as heartbreaking. He said she was calm, too calm, like someone who had made peace with something no one else was ready for. She didn't sound scared. She didn't sound angry. She sounded done. He posted the screenshots, not for attention, but to wake people up, to show that sometimes even love isn't enough to save someone who's been silently falling for years. It was more than a tragedy. It was a question echoing in the minds of all who knew her or thought they did. How long had she been carrying this, and why didn't we see it? The more they looked back, the more the signs became visible. A shift in tone here, a post that felt heavier than the rest. The occasional caption that mentioned pain, uncertainty, or loneliness, but masked in hashtags and emojis. There were clues, but we missed them, because when someone wears confidence like armor, we stop checking for wounds. This was the world Raven lived in, one where performance and pain were often indistinguishable, where vulnerability felt dangerous, and where a woman celebrated for her strength couldn't find a place safe enough to be weak. The tension had been building for months, quietly, invisibly, until suddenly it exploded into silence. Her death shocked millions. For her followers, it was unthinkable. The young woman who filled their screens with hope and strength suddenly gone. But for 600 Breezy, Raven's passing wasn't just a loss. It was devastation. The kind that knocks the air from your chest and leaves you staring at a phone screen, begging for one more message, one more moment, one more chance to make it right. And then came the revelation, the one that made the grief heavier, the one that gave her death a voice. He shared her final messages, a series of words that didn't scream or plead. They whispered, calm, resigned, as if she'd rehearsed them in her mind 1,000 times before finally pressing send. Nothing feels real to me. Not my love, not my business, not myself. She told him she was tired. She told him she was slipping. And she told him not to blame himself. It was as if she was saying goodbye to the world while the world was still looking the other way. People wanted answers. They wanted to know what happened to the woman who made healing look possible. What happened to the trainer, the poet, the speaker, the woman who held the hands of others through their storms, and then disappeared in the middle of her own. Was it the pressure? The constant need to be on? The image she had built, so strong and consistent that it no longer had room for weakness? In the world Raven occupied, fitness influencer, mental health advocate, businesswoman, the grind never stops. You wake up before dawn, hit the gym, post the routine, reply to comments, manage brand deals, film content, promote positivity, show progress. Day after day, with little room for anything else. And somewhere in that constant cycle of inspiration and expectation, she lost herself. 600 Breezy said she had been fighting demons no one could see. That she often hid her pain, not to deceive, but to protect. Because she didn't want to be a burden. Because she was supposed to be the strong one. The motivator. The brand. The example. And then, fans started going back through her posts. Suddenly, the captions hit different. A smiling photo that once said, "Keep going no matter what," now read like a quiet cry for help. A spoken word piece about darkness that had been praised for its artistry now felt like a coded confession. The signs were there, but buried beneath hashtags and filters. Everyone wanted to know, how could nobody tell? Was it just that she was that good at hiding it? Or were the people around her so focused on her strength, they stopped checking for pain? Some pointed fingers. Was there someone close who ignored the signs? Did a conversation get brushed off? Was there a moment that, if handled differently, could have changed everything? Or was this something deeper? A wound that no relationship, no follower count, no motivational quote could ever fix? This was the turning point. The moment when Raven's story stopped being about a brand and started being about a tragedy. A reminder that pain doesn't always wear black. That sometimes it smiles, trains clients, posts reels, and then sends a goodbye message when no one's watching. The shock rippled outward. Fans left comments in disbelief. I needed her voice to get through my own dark days. She told me to keep going. I wish she had too. And for 600 Breezy, there was nothing but silence. He had held her, loved her, laughed with her, and now he was holding her final words in a phone, reading them over and over, as if some hidden meaning might save her, as if reading them again might change the ending. But it wouldn't, because the woman who gave the world so much had nothing left to give herself. Raven's passing left behind a silence that echoed across the timelines of thousands. Her family, reeling from the sudden loss, tried to piece together a life that had seemed so full just hours before. Her fans, people she had never met but had touched deeply, flooded her posts with comments. Words like heartbroken, devastated, I wish I had known, scrolled endlessly beneath images of her smiling, glowing, thriving. But now those images felt like ghosts. Her death was more than a tragedy. It was a revelation. For years, Raven had been a light. She championed mental health, encouraged self-worth, and spoke openly about finding strength. Yet even she was pulled under by a darkness that didn't scream, didn't wave for help. It simply waited, quietly, patiently. And now, the woman who had shown others how to fight was gone. The shock wasn't just about her absence, it was about what her death exposed. That even those who lead others through healing might still be hurting. That even the ones who speak the loudest about hope may be the ones who need it most. In the days that followed, her name trended across platforms. News outlets ran features. Celebrities and influencers shared her story. Her final message, raw and heartbreaking, was reposted thousands of times. Some shared it with disbelief, others with guilt, many with recognition, because they, too, had felt it. That invisible weight, that sense of being disconnected from a life that looked whole from the outside. The same ache Raven had described in her final message, nothing feels real to me, was a pain too many understood but had never dared to say out loud. Her death pulled back the curtain on a culture obsessed with appearances. In a world where your worth is measured in likes, where your peace is often sacrificed for performance, and your pain is filtered until it's unrecognizable, Raven's story shattered the illusion. She wasn't just a victim of depression. She was a symbol of what can happen when the pressure to appear okay outweighs the ability to say, I'm not. Her family, in their grief, made a decision. They would speak. They would not let her death be swept away by another news cycle. They talked openly about her mental health struggles, her resilience, her desire to keep going even when everything inside her told her to stop. They turned their pain into purpose. They urged others to check in, not just on their strong friends, but on everyone, to ask the hard questions, to listen, really listen to the answers. Her boyfriend, 600 Breezy, devastated and broken, used his platform to echo that call. He posted about the reality of loving someone with silent pain. He encouraged others to look past the surface, to take mental health seriously, and to never assume someone's smile means they're okay. And the world listened. Mental health organizations saw a spike in engagement. Hotlines reported increases in calls. Influencers began sharing unfiltered stories of their own struggles. Conversations that were once buried under highlight reels and positive vibes-only culture were now taking center stage. Raven's death became more than a moment. It became a movement, one that forced people to confront the uncomfortable truth that strength doesn't always look loud, that depression doesn't always look sad, that sometimes it looks like a successful entrepreneur with hundreds of thousands of followers. Sometimes it looks like the woman telling you to believe in yourself while struggling to believe in her own worth. In the aftermath, a deeper awareness began to grow. People started talking more, really talking about mental health, about therapy, about boundaries, about the importance of rest, about being human before being productive, about choosing life, even when it feels impossible. And though her voice is no longer here to guide us, her message remains. In every repost, in every tearful tribute, In every conversation her death made possible. Raven K. Jackson's life was a light. Her death was a warning. And her legacy is a wake-up call. Because the truth is, she should still be here. And maybe, if we learn from her story, if we stop assuming, start listening, and begin creating spaces where people can be honest without shame, maybe someone else will stay. Maybe someone else will feel seen. And maybe the next time someone says, "I'm fine," we'll stop and ask again. If you or someone you love is struggling, don't wait. Don't second guess. Don't scroll past the signs. Reach out. Call a friend. Check on your people, the quiet ones, the strong ones, the ones who always say, "I got it." Ask twice. Listen without judgment. Be present. You don't need the perfect words. Just your presence can save a life. And if you're the one hurting, please know this. You are not alone. There is help. There is hope. There is life after this moment. Text, call, message, whatever it takes. Speak up before the silence takes over. This world needs you here. Your story is not over. Let Raven's legacy be a reminder. We must make space for the hard conversations. We must normalize checking in, not just showing up. We must value real connection more than curated perfection. Mental health is health. Let's treat it that way. Start the conversation. Keep it going. And don't stop until no one feels like they have to suffer in silence again.